So, hello and welcome to this edition of Business Success, where we get to talk about all things business and bedroom. And today I have an amazing guest, and I'm so excited. I've known Karen for what's it now, Karen? Eight years.
It will be.
8 years,
Yeah.
and I am passionate about what she does, and I'll tell you a bit about that in a minute. But we're going to be talking and having a conversation about conscious communication, which is something both Karen and I are really passionate about. So let me introduce Karen. I'm going to read this because I don't want to miss anything because she's pretty awesome. So Karen is a transformational empowerment coach and speaker. She's a creator of Parenting Magic. I'll say that again so you can go and look it up. Parenting Magic. And a mum of 3 wonderful sons. She works with parents who are struggling with parenting so they can really connect with their children and communicate in a conscious and confident way, enjoying parenting and have a happy family life. Parents who feel their kids don't listen, don't do as they're asked, and who feel guilty about it. And who feel guilty about not doing a better job are the people that Karen works with. Karen has appeared on national TV and radio, and obviously some very important podcasts, spoken on stage and at international conferences on parenting communication. So this is literally her bubble. She has also been nominated for UK National Women Inspiring Award and Empower Mums in Business Award. Busy girl. And you've got a book. Tell us about your book.
Look, I've even got one. How pretty is that? Parenting Magic. Yeah. That had to be written because, my journey as a single parent now for 23 years, of boys, now men, who have got incredible challenges.
Yeah.
And that is where my way of looking at everything differently started with Eden when he wasn't very old at all. My youngest one, he's on the autistic spectrum, and he was, oh my God, he was struggling at school so much. And by the time he was 10 and ready to go into secondary school, could barely read or write 3-letter words. So I started this search of there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way of connecting with him, of communicating with him, of, whatever's going on. So yes, it's communication. Everything we do is communication, isn't it? And that's what I think is fascinating, that people don't realize that we can never not be communicating, because it's not just talking, is it? It is everything. We talk about body language, and the body language goes out and extends into what I call energetic communication, and that's vital as well. So I went down that journey of NLP, hypnotherapy, energy therapies, and it just changed Eden and our relationship. And, his story is incredible because he did go to what he called normal school eventually. I think he's got 10 GCSEs. He then went to college and did a diploma in applied sciences and an A-level in history just because he liked history, and then went to university. And we're talking about someone who was at special needs school, when he was 5. So it's that, and it's everything that I've learned that's gone into this melting pot to become Parenting Magic. And even though that is my passion because I started as a parent, it's really about our personal magic. And I know this, so many people don't know what their magic is or how to use it. We're just incredible, aren't we, Lorraine? And people just not use it.
Communication is all part of that. I think we do forget that we're in relationships with lots of different people, whether it's a parent, a partner, whatever that might be. And communication is literally, even to ourselves, is literally the fundamental thing that keeps us going in life, but something we don't learn about. So although we're doing it absolutely every second of every moment in every day, there's no conscious teaching around the best and effective way, particularly in such vulnerable spaces as being a parent or being a partner, like the intimate partner in the bedroom, which is obviously what I'm all about. But actually, the energy behind conscious communication with our children and conscious communication with a partner, and we know from events and things we've done together, there's so many similarities in how we show up, the language we use, our body language, even down to tonality and things that we connect with.
Well, that bit comes from Moravian, doesn't it? When, Albert Moravian's model is that our communication is only 7%. The meaning that's conveyed is only 7% of the words. And then it's 38 of the tone, and then it's 55 of the body. And to me, body goes beyond the end of this physical thing because it's the electromagnetic field. And there's so much information in that. It's fascinating. And we're not taught it. You're absolutely right. You talk then about, we have to start with us, I think. We don't even know how to communicate with ourselves. And the most important relationship is with you. Because when you're your best you, then you are going to be the best lover, partner, daughter, mother, whatever. You can't do it if you're not looking after yourself. And we're not taught how to. And that's why, we talk about education, but the things that matter most are still not in mainstream. We still don't do it. So communication is absolutely vital. And it means so many things. And I love that word relationship because it's got a ship on the end of it.
Oh, lovely.
And
Yes.
a ship's a vessel, isn't it? A ship's a vehicle that we are. You know what happens with vehicles? Sometimes they start and stop, and some go a short journey, and some capsize, and some crash. And if you can look at it like that, then I think we can be kinder to ourselves when we realise that's what we've got. We've got this vehicle that we can do relations in. And we are in relation to everything. I am in relation to everything and everybody else. And because I've got this passion for words, I don't think people stop and think about what they're saying.
No, and I know you have a huge passion for words and how words are made up and how we use them and how conscious we are in sharing them. Do you want to just explain? I know in a recent event we worked together, you gave some awesome examples that were just a bit like mic drop moments of like things that I could see that this ripple in the room of like, why have I never known that or thought about that before? So do you want to share a bit about that?
Yeah, this is it. It happened to me way back in 2006 when I was doing my NLP training, sitting in this training room in Godalming, and the trainer had started to talk about your unconscious mind. And so, I know this, that we only use 5 to 10% consciousness. So the rest is underneath, unconscious. Some people say subconscious. And so what's going on there is completely different to what we think at that 5 to 10%. And the first one was when she said, we can't actually directly process don't. It's like, well, but we know what it means. We spend a lot of our time saying to children, don't touch, don't run, don't speak to me, don't. You might as well put a big red cross through the don't and just look at what you've written after it. Because I know now if I say to you or anybody that's listening, whatever you do, please don't think about donuts.
Well, I do that without being asked. Doesn't have to be in the conversation. But yeah, again.
Yeah, don't think about a red double-decker bus now, whatever you do. Don't think about a giraffe. Why do we point out the things to children or anybody that they probably wouldn't think about? So we put it in their path. And it just fascinates me that we ask for what we don't want instead of what we do.
100%. And that comes up so much in the couples work that I do. It's like, that I don't want this to happen, and I don't like this, and I don't like that, and I don't like, rather than finding the language, because I think generally people find it easier to complain than to ask.
Oh,
and in relationships, it's to point a finger at what's not happening, as opposed to taking back the I power and saying what we do want, because often we don't seem to have the language for that, or the confidence, or the societal support to be able to do that. I think as parents and in intimate relationships, I think that's very similar. We kind of get into these negative habits of the language you use. Go on, go on to explain a bit more, because I think this is fascinating.
It's not only that, it's the way that humans are wired, isn't it? Because let's go back to the caveman times. For survival, we had to know what we didn't want and be that vigilant. So I think that is just how we're wired. So we're looking for the danger and what's not right. The thing that if I ask them how they are and they'll say not bad, I do say, I didn't ask you how you're not. And that just makes people go,
Huh?
I want to know who you are, not how you're not.
Mhm.
And I want you to do things that I want you to do instead of bringing up, like you said, what you don't want or you don't like. We find it easier. If we think about it, when you point that finger, 3 are pointing back at you. This is the best place to start in everything. Look at you. So look at that.
Karen, I love, I've heard you say that a few times. Can you just say that again? Because obviously there's people going to be watching this, people are going to be hearing it. So just the idea that when we're pointing a finger and
at
we've
someone
got
else.
yeah, and we've got a kind of hand clench when we're pointing, we're kind of making that traditional pointy finger. That actually, often when we're pointing at someone, there's 3 fingers pointing back at us. I just think that's so powerful.
Yeah, and that is just to say that.
Yeah.
Start here. It's almost directing you. If you do that, it's like a bloody gun.
Yes.
You know, it's like, here we go, I'm going to shoot this at you. It's just, I find it all incredible. So the words, yeah, I start with the don't. You know, I don't like that word but, because if you're paying someone a compliment or you're saying something nice, the minute you say but, it just takes away what you've said. And there's energy in that word. I think that we do know this. We can feel it. We just don't know we know it. You say but to somebody, it feels completely different to and. And you can change that word but to and. And then it's a building block and it's got a completely different energy to it. I'll give you an example. So my middle son, Hal, was always asking, go to this party on Friday night, when he was a late teenager. And the old me would have said, yes, you can, but. Yes, you can, but be home. Well, I wouldn't have said be home on time. I would have said, don't be late. I would have said, don't be late. Don't lose your keys. Don't get drunk. I would have given him all the things I didn't want to do.
Just flagging up all the possibilities of things he could do.
I never thought about getting drunk.
Yeah.
You probably did. And then it's just changing all of it. So, and this is when it's important to be present and to think before we speak. And that is so often what couples, anyone in a relationship, we don't stop to be present and just think what we're going to say. Yes. And we just shoot off, and that's what I would have said to Helen. Yes, you can go, but make sure you don't do this. And it would be all the negative things. When I changed it to say, yes, you can, and make sure you always know where your keys are, where your money is. Stay sober. Didn't always work. And it's just the difference in telling them what you want with the and. I mean, I know it's like you said, I do the deconstruction of letters. It fascinates me. It absolutely fascinates me that in the English language and alphabet, we've just got all these strokes and symbols and shapes that we put together. And the truth is, those very clever scientists can feel the vibration of that. They can work out the vibration of everything, can't they? The words, the colours, notes, everything that we've got in the universe has a frequency and a vibration. And so when we put some strokes together like but, it has definitely got a different energy and feel to and.
100%.
So tiny little words that make a massive difference. And the whole thing about...
Sorry, so I think the other thing with the and as well is if you're using it in the context of replacing a but, about bringing it home to I. So and I, not and you will, but and I, and like that for me is so powerful. And I know one of the phrases I often share with couples is, and people I work with is, this is amazing. What would make it even better is for me, or this is where I am at, or this is how I feel. No one can make us feel. That's a whole nother conversation. I know we've both kind of done work on that in the worlds we've been in together. But, our feelings are, again, another vibration. We need to take more ownership of our communication, and as well as having the ands instead of the buts, and this is how I feel, and this is what would serve me. as opposed to, but that's not right, and but you're doing it wrong, and but whatever it might be. When I'm thinking of, particularly intimacy and sex, a but can end a relationship. If you use enough buts, pardon the pun, if you use enough buts, that's probably not the right analogy, but if you literally, if you're constantly saying to someone that something, you're putting out that vibe that it's, there's this but, and there's always this secondary thing that goes with it, that can just send out, as you said, the vibration of that in a conversation, and as in using the word and instead, just resonates. Even like just for me saying it now, it just resonates so much better. And this would serve me, and this would, this would be better if, the same as you did with your son, giving those you're giving the same, but you're turning it on its head. It's what you would like, rather than always focusing on the negatives. Just so important in any relationship.
Yeah. And here's another little weird thing, because we know how the unconscious, I always say that the unconscious, it takes everything personally. It's very childlike. And yes, it stores memories, and it does, a whole myriad of things. And it's important. What was I going to say then? How can you start a sentence and then forget what you were going to say?
It's all down to conscious communication, Karen.
Yeah, this is it. I've just gone totally unconscious. Yes, that's it. So it likes compliments. That's the thing. It really responds to it. So if you say, you hook them when you start with the better way of starting a conversation, just like you said then, rather than it being you make me feel, you said, we've had these conversations, nobody can. You're allowing it. It's not easy to not allow it. It's still you that allows all those things happening. And the difference is when you can start with, I feel like this. We don't deny our feelings. We just feel it, but you're not making me. I feel this when. I think it's really important, the when you do this, because we come from a very, very critical analysis of relationships, which is so sad. It's almost like we come from thinking the worst of the other person. And especially, this is what parents do with children, isn't it?
100%.
You make me feel this, you make me do that. Instead of saying, I feel like this, it's true, isn't it? That really annoys me when you don't put the milk back in the fridge. That's fair enough. That's, it's a statement, but there's no blame attached to it. So the way that we word things, the way we can put things in a sentence is incredible. When you're talking about, being intimate with a partner, we don't particularly think about that feedback sandwich. And I really think that works with everyone, because the unconscious mind is like it is. It likes that compliment first.
Yeah, so when we talk about feedback sandwich, we're saying giving a positive, giving an improvement area rather than the word negative. So that kind of sandwich in two positives with some aspect of development, improvement in the middle.
Exactly that.
The vibration tunes in, and then here's that other thing differently, because it's not been a string of challenges and improvements. That actually, our energy vibration rises. We accept that challenge, supportive comment of how we can improve, and then it's sandwiched beautifully with something else we're doing, and we hear it so differently when it's done like that.
We do, and I think that's it, because you've hooked the unconscious and it's already engaged and invested. It will listen, and it's almost like it'll be saying to that little bit of development, people feedback, criticism. I don't like that word. It's just they're going to hear it differently, as though it's almost like, oh, that's a good idea, rather with being on that back foot and being defensive.
Yes, and that's what I was saying about the phrase I use with couples about, this is amazing. What you do here is amazing. This part of what we share, whether that's about sex or just time together or whatever it might be, is amazing. And rather than, but sometimes this and sometimes that, and what would make it even better is not rejecting someone. It's not saying they're rubbish. It's just saying, and there's more available to us, and this is how I feel about it and what would show up. And then finishing that with a compliment or a cuddle or a kiss, whatever that might be. But just reach that area of, and often what happens as well and I think this can happen in parenting relationships as well, is when we start to change our communication, the other person also has that invitation to then start changing ours. And you end up actually that you can meet in the middle, and the friction and energy that may be created where they match you, and then they start sharing and start opening up, because the vibration you're putting out, they can then meet you, rather than this constant arguments or battles, which happens with kids as well, doesn't it? It's like, you have a go at me, I'll have a go at you. I mean, like, there's so many relationship dynamics like that. Even at work, sometimes that can happen. But just to change that energy, you then invite people to meet you where you're at. And I think that's really important as well. Someone's got to start those changes, that conscious change. And it's so hard, because it's so, as you say, it's so ingrained in us. It's almost that, like you say, survival technique. We've, it's an inherited, almost a gene in us, that we have to actively think about how we can change that, because we very much live in a society that focuses on, the news. There's so many aspects around us. I won't talk about that, but there's so many aspects around us that are very negative. For us to then step up into this real juicy, conscious communication, has to be conscious. It has to be a proactive thing that we do. And
it's going to take.
Yeah, and the great thing is, once we start doing the changes of the vibration of the energy we put out, then start manifesting in that rippling effect, because we are communicating not only to ourselves and to other people, but also, to the universe in a much better, healthier way. It's that thing of, being really clear in our language, particularly around things like manifesting, whether that's in a conversation or on a bigger perspective, of being really clear. And that's what we're talking about, conscious communication on every level.
Absolutely. And the thing I know with my boys, when I knew it had gone in, is when I would hear them telling their friends or something, or say it in the way I would say it to them. It's just totally different. It's the way forward. And I just think, like you said, our brain has been wired as it has been for so long. It's going to take us a very long time to change it. And still not enough people are aware of this, know how to teach it and how to share things. It's still very different. You've got to be present, and you've got to know that this is available to know how to change it. We're talking about, starting off with the feedback sandwich to someone. Just start with a positive thing. You're talking about, couples. I'm talking about Eden bringing home rubbish in his trouser pockets and breaking washing machines because he had lolly sticks in it, or toy cars and things. And before I knew any of this, I would have said, you drive me mad when you do this. It would have been criticism to start with. And it would have been, do it this way, and I want this way. And instead of just the whole reframe of thinking, I'm actually glad he brings his rubbish home. That's a good thing to tell a child. I'm really pleased that you don't just throw your litter on the floor and you bring it home. And what would help me even more is when you empty them. That's another good one. When, not if. When you do this, because it will save me washing machines. And I know you like helping people. It's just go back to that way of making it a compliment that we don't do. We're so good at doing that negative. The other thing, that the words we use, like you just said, we put people on the back foot when we criticize. And the words that we use a lot are interrogatives, which are all when are you going to do your homework? What on earth do you think you do? Who do you think you're to? It's all this aggression in those words. So when we can put those to the side and think about what we really want to know, again, it's you coming from your place. I'd like to know when you're going to do your homework. I'm curious about this. I'm just wondering. It's just that gentle, soft approach that, again, will engage them. You've got more chance of them listening.
100%.
And then say the thing. Because if you put them on the back foot, they're not going to listen. First thing that comes into the head then is a story, just something off the cuff. And that's not where we want to be. We want to take our communication to a deeper level.
100%. And anyone listening to this, I think, is worth almost re-listening to it and listening to all of it also from a perspective of business. Because, I'm about business and how sexual energy can support. And these communication skills are absolutely fundamental like we said at the start, at every area of our life. So whether that's parenting, intimate relationships, our business, you know, these are skills with colleagues, with partners, with this is 100% transferable. And if we practice it in one area and get it right, you know, it's a habit that we can then share, and it can only enhance business if we're giving people more positive energy, positive communication, more conscious communication, no matter what area of life we're talking about. So it's almost worth kind of almost re-listen and think about it from the business perspective. What happens if we say and? What happens if, you know, we're talking to people, clients, customers in this different language? What are we putting out to them which actually evokes more of a positive response, you know, however we're serving them?
I mean, whether or not you're reporting to, you know, I don't know, a manager, a boss, and the minute they ask you, why have you done this or what, there's a horrible feeling that you're being criticised, isn't there? And there's definitely a different way around it. And when we've got suggestions, whoever it's to, instead of just saying to them, if you did this, tell them it's when you do that, because there's like the presupposition then that it will happen.
Yes. Yeah.
When it makes a massive difference.
Huge, isn't it? One word can change the whole context and energy behind the conversation.
Yeah, and the other thing, it's not just manners, this, rather than saying please, if you say thank you, the thank you's an assumption will happen, it's already done, and please is a little bit placating, pleading. So, I'd really appreciate it when you do the washing up after tea. Thank you. They're already being thanked for something. That's parenting. It can be, you know, like you say, in the bedroom. That's a nice one.
Yeah.
At work, wherever. The brain, the unconscious mind is listening to the thank you rather than the please do it. It reminds me a little bit of this hoping. When we hope for things, I understand that humanity needs hope on this big sort of scale. When we're doing it in relationships, hoping is like who to? Who are you giving the power away to? I don't want a hope this will happen or a hope to do that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. The energy behind the word please and the word, thank you, please. I guess it depends on the context, but yeah, thank you is much more powerful. Behind it.
Exactly. And we will all use all of them, and it's all absolutely fine. Of course it is. What I'm doing is sharing ways to get a different outcome if you want a different outcome. So this is the language you use to get a different result or a different outcome. That is why I think, because a lot of this is NLP, and I know NLP can often get that reputation for being manipulative. It's a tool. It's like any tool. We can talk about AI. That can be used for bad. It can be used for good. Talk about a scalpel. A surgeon can create good with it. Somebody could stab somebody with it. Everything's a tool, and it's how it's used. So there's no manipulation in doing this. It's when you know that you want a greater outcome for the greater good of all, for all involved.
I think the power's in the knowing, isn't it? Once we know we have this available and people have, listened and heard and thought, it's kind of struck a chord, and they can see that shows up in their own lives in whatever relationship we're talking about, whether that's parenting, intimate or business. It's how we can change. So we've said about the but and the and. Is there any nuggets, Karen, more nuggets you can share with us of tools that we can, things we can adapt and change that would give us a better conscious communication with the people that we're connecting with?
It's the energetic thing that's really important as well, because we can set ourselves up to be present and preempt a situation with good vibes and good thoughts and good energy that's coming out from us. I mean, we know, don't we, now that the heart is so powerful that the energy that comes out from there is even stronger than from the brain. When we can do that, we set the scene with different energy in it. Not only the words, but your body sends out a massively readable frequency.
I just
And
found
so
myself sitting up as you said that. That was really weird. I was like, oh yes, I forgot that. But you're right, and it's something again we're not conscious of. We kind of forget that our body language. You know, we can say whatever words we want, but if our body language isn't matching and doesn't match the frequency, it's that kind of trying to, isn't it, that smiling through gritted teeth kind of thing.
it's yeah,
We forget, and even as you were saying it, I was like, oh yes, body language.
it's massive, isn't it? I think we have to be careful because, you know, I can cross my arms because I'm a bit chilly. It's
Yeah.
not defensive. It's just not reading too much into it. The energy that we send out is incredible. And the two things together, the energy, the words, but the body language will win. I've done it just for fun. If somebody's asked me, do I want another glass of wine? I can put that out and I can say, oh, absolutely not. They're pouring it because they're just looking at my body like I'm going like this. Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Or they just know you and they know that there was going to be an answer that said no when it comes to wine. That could be the other option, of course.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I think, you know, as parents and in the bedroom and in business, we've all had those moments where a no's not been a no and a yes has not been a yes.
Yeah.
And we can resonate with that because we're giving off a different vibration in our energy that doesn't match our words. And that's actually where we need to be consciously communicating. And often we do that because we don't know how to consciously communicate how we're feeling, because we haven't been taught, that that's okay and appropriate, that we can share that, and how to do it in a loving and supportive and caring way for whoever's receiving that information. So we don't do it. We just kind of hide it. We try and rather than just being really honest with ourselves, firstly, as you've said quite rightly a few times, but also with our partner. We just seem to be scared. We've got this gift of communication we seem sometimes to be very scared of. You know, we're worried about being judged. We're worried about rejection. Well, you know, there's all these different emotions that we're worried about. But actually, if we own who we are and we own our own language and our own thoughts and feelings, there is nothing to be frightened of as long as we've got the tools to express it. And this is what you so beautifully teach and talk about. Is just some of these tweaks in our communication can make an immense difference. This awareness that we can have in just changing even just a few words.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's still true that, you know, we're used to hearing that word no thousands of times more than yes. So I invite people to say yes and then the caveats around it. So you can say, yes, that's a good idea. Not on this occasion, though, but you've already said yes. So you've already given that positive energy. So if we talk about children, you've got children, you know, can we paint today? And sometimes parents will say, no, we can't do that. I would say, that's a great idea. I'd love to. Just make it positive and say, tomorrow or the day after. Just it takes time, Lorraine, to learn a different way of language and speaking to people. And so for me, I really do encourage people to have scripts until it becomes second nature. Because the one thing that we hear a lot is, can't do that, and can't do that. And we say it. How often do we say, I can't? We don't mean I can't. We usually mean, well, I don't want to. Because then the excuse might be, I haven't got the time. Yes, you do. We've all got the same amount of time. It's not a priority, and you're not going to devote any of your precious time to that. Still, be honest.
100%.
We find it so difficult. So it's getting rid of can't. You say to children so often, you can't do that. I've got a great example of being at my mum's when the lady next door could hear her. A granddaughter had gone out in bare feet. She was out. She'd done it. And I heard the grand saying, you can't go out in bare feet. You can't do that. Well, she'd done it. She can. So what I think happens then, because this unconscious mind is still very childlike, we're confusing it. you don't mean I can't. You mean you don't want me to. You don't think it's a good idea. I might hurt my feet. There's a load of reasons, valid reasons we might not want that to happen. But it's not true, is it, to say can't?
No,
And we
no,
do this so often. We tell the lies, and I am all about keeping the unconscious happy. It does not like being lied to, and it knows that we use so many words that are actually lies.
Yeah, and I think sometimes people do that. Again, I particularly think about business and interrelation, just to get out of the situation. It's just a quick exit. It's just finding the words that they can find so that they don't have to find the better ones and just get out of the conversation because they feel uncomfortable. Because again, we don't have these tools to be
Not
able
been
to.
taught it. Not
No.
been taught it. So and so when the lie comes out, whether it's unintentional, what I mean by that is we don't mean to lie to people when we say, you can't or you've got to or you should, because they're lies actually, but we don't even think of them as lies. Your unconscious does. It's a different way of using language and being honest. We've got those things called universal qualifiers where we'll say, oh, he always does that. No, he doesn't, because if you're doing it every second of every minute of every hour of every day, it's like, it's not always. And so these are it might sound really silly, but I know that this is the way your unconscious mind is programmed and it processes things. And it's not true, and we're not careful enough with the language. But nobody's ever pointed it out before. It's not common practice in schools, is it, to grow up learning this?
No, and it should be, because our relationship with ourselves and everyone around us would be, for a start, from your perspective, for parenting, we would solve a whole lot of long-term issues in people's lives, because that parenting then goes on. The dynamics of what you do and supporting parents who are struggling with some of that. Those children are often the ones that later on will be the people I'm working with, because they find that they can't communicate with their partner, so then boundaries have come blurred. They've had difficult conversations in the bedroom because they've always been told no, or there's always been a but. So they think that, if someone wants them, there's always going to be a caveat to it. So this just pans out through the whole of our life. So getting it right, this is why I love the stuff you do, because it's important to get it right with our children, because we're setting them up so that I don't have so much work to do. Because in theory,
It's not like our job.
in theory, they will have much better communication as adults. They'll succeed in life, in business, and in bedroom, because they'll have these tools, rather than doing what most of us do as adults, is just fumbling around, hoping we're getting it right, doing our best, and spend a lot of time patching things up and trying to put it right, but never standing back and going, look, this is a repeating pattern. This is showing up in my relationships. This is showing up in the dynamics of things in my life. What can I do to put it right? Maybe it's my communication, because obviously it's never us, it's always somebody else. But actually, maybe it's about, starting with communication, because it is absolutely the pillar of everything we do. Everything we do is grounded in communication. As you say, even if it's not in words, it's definitely,
Well, I was thinking that, we know instinctively if you've gone into a room where someone's had an argument and you think, I could cut the atmosphere with a knife, you're feeling the energy in there. And we all know. So if you've got any relationship, whether it is intimate or work, you feel that sometimes. You walk in, someone's happy in a good mood, and you go, oh, the vibes in there are brilliant. And it's a vibration. And that's how we do communicate. I know when Eden was about 8 years old, he was playing at my feet with Lego, and I was just going through a divorce and thinking about the situation, my ex, and they weren't particularly good thoughts, and what was, wrong in my life and how hard it was. And Eden just turned around and said to me, what's wrong, Mummy? And it's like he knew there was, because he could feel the energy. We can read it, can't we, often? And what I did.
Go on, sorry, Karen.
What I did was shut him down and said, nothing, I'm fine. Well, that wasn't right. I wouldn't do that again, because it didn't validate that he could feel it, that his intuition was right. If I'd have only said to him, gosh, you are right, I am feeling, I wouldn't have had to explain in detail at all. If I'd have just said I wasn't feeling good, I was thinking about something, and that would have been better. It would have validated his feelings. And that is where I think, you know, in the work that you do, individuals are so not used to validating their own intuition, feelings, or that big thing, asking for what they want. Maybe it's just a British thing. We're too polite still.
No, I think I've had this conversation with people in various groups. I mean, and I don't think it's just a British thing. I think it's just that
Okay.
we want to. I think it is a British thing in the sense. I think it's more prominent in our culture because of the way, you know, just the way our culture is. But I know I've had conversations with people. You know, people have heard me talk about this from other cultures. And other, you know, other countries, and have said, I get that because we experience, you know, I've experienced that as well. So I think we're human, and we don't want to, you know, we're trying to do our best with the language we've got, and none of us have learnt about the ands and the ifs and the, you know, the pleases and the thank yous and stuff. So actually, we're all doing that in some version. I think, of, no matter where we are in the world, I think there's, as humans, as you said, we're about survival. It very much depends on our parents, our experience of our parents, and you know what's handed down in the communication and how behaviours managed, relationships are managed. You know, those again stuff that we've talked about before, like generational pattern stuff, and sometimes, you know, it's about someone breaking the cycle and doing things differently, and that's what we're talking about in all relationships, is becoming more conscious and teaching our children. Even in intimate relationships, you know, what our kids see at home and they pick up on, and it stays with you forever. And so that vibration you're putting out as parents in your intimate relationship that your children are seeing.
Oh yeah, that's
Most significant, as well as the conversations you're having with them directly. So that, you know, this is all interlinked, and modeling it in our business. That vibration you're putting out in your business is going to bring you success when you are communicating completely consciously, openly, and being really honest. And I've learned that from you know, the life that I've had, and the story, as you know, and many of those listening will know, you know, of not being able to speak and not being able to step into that voice power of even having a voice, let alone opening my mouth and getting it right or wrong, but just having huge parts of my life that I couldn't talk about, to then knowing how I can talk about them, and you know, tiptoeing through some conversations because I didn't feel empowered in my communication skills that I would get it right. And getting it right is important, and that's what I've learned is the language I use, I can convey the message I want, but we need to be conscious in how we do it, and a lot of us are so not conscious in how we do it in any other. But it's easy. I mean, I know I slip into some really bad habits sometimes when, you know, emotions kick in, or, you know, I'm having a bad day, or I'm not feeling great, and I just slip into almost those bad habits. And actually, they're the times you don't want to be slipping into bad habits. They're the times you need to be pulling it out of the bag. But we are human. But if we can start making those changes, the habit becomes, you know, with practice, those habits change and become more positive.
Yeah, and that's what I say, you know, I am human and I will use all those words I say are not the best to use, of course. I just think to have the awareness that you can change the outcome by words because of the impact and the influence those words have. I grew up with that saying, you know, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. That's not true. Words have got so much power. I was thinking that, you know, at work, if you are in a situation where you are saying one thing and you think you're doing one thing, if your thoughts are doing something different, your thought is your first output of that electrical energy. And you run that thought again and again and again and again and again, and it's a belief. And then you will behave in accordance to that belief. And so we are so programmed, aren't we, Lorraine, when we think we're not.
100%, 100%. And it's so interesting to talk to you, and I've loved talking to you. And to be honest, we could probably sit here and chat all day about this. So let's reconvene at another time and maybe like carry on this conversation. Karen, where can people reach out to you? We will put some notes with the video and the audio, but where can people reach out if they want to find more about you and your work you do?
If they're on Facebook, I have a group on Facebook, and that is Parenting Magic. And then I have a website that is www.parentingmagic.co.uk. And yeah, I'm on LinkedIn as well. So people will find me. Yeah. I'd love to connect.
Yeah, no, and I really encourage people to connect with Karen and see the work it does, because the work she's doing is absolutely amazing. Whether you're, you know, particularly if you're looking at changing it in all areas of your life, parenting is, you know, a good place to start, because actually that sometimes is the most challenging area to start with, you dealing with little ones and the stress of life and that, and then kind of build that into everywhere in your life. But yeah, definitely reach out and connect with Karen, because she does amazing work. Well, thank you very much for joining me. It's
Pleasure anytime. I've loved it. Thank you.
It's been awesome, and I've loved connecting. So for now, that's all from us, and we will both see you hopefully very, very soon. Thank you for joining us.